The air on Valephar station smelled wrong. Mara Ellison had noticed it the moment she stepped off the shuttle, something metallic and thin, like the inside of a tin can left in the sun. The gravity was slightly off too, pulling at her bones with a heaviness that reminded her of hiking with a full pack. She adjusted her duffel strap, cracked her neck, and kept walking. She was the only human in the intake corridor. Around her, tall figures moved with the easy grace of species that had been traveling the stars for centuries. The Valephari were lean and sharp-featured, with pale blue skin and irises that caught light like mirrors. They were built for precision, long fingers, wide-set shoulders, joints that moved in ways human anatomy didn't allow. They looked at Mara the way people look at something they're not sure belongs. She looked back. Kale Veyron had trained soldiers from 11 different species. He had seen cowards and champions, weaklings who became warriors, and naturals who burned out before their first real engagement. He had seen everything. Or so he believed. The assignment came down 3 cycles before she arrived: 1 human female, combat trainee, volunteer exchange program. Integrate with standard division cohort. Duration, 6 months. He'd read the file twice and felt nothing but mild curiosity. Humans were a young species, barely 2 centuries into interstellar contact. Their biology was unusual, fragile in some ways, oddly durable in others. Warm-blooded. Emotionally expressive. Prone to something called spite, which the xenopsychology notes flagged as a potential behavioral complication. He didn't know what that meant yet. He would. The first day of training, Kale gathered the cohort in the main yard and explained the program simply. "This is not a competition," he said, voice flat and carrying. "This is development. You will be pushed. You will fail. You will learn. The goal is growth, not glory." He watched their faces as he spoke. The Valephari recruits, 6 of them, stood at attention, eyes forward, expressions controlled. Standard. Good. Then he looked at the human. Mara Ellison was shorter than everyone else by at least 30 centimeters. She stood with her feet planted slightly wider than shoulder width, arms loose at her sides, jaw set. She wasn't at attention. She was ready. There was a difference, and Kale noticed it. She was watching him the way predators watch something they haven't decided about yet. He filed that away. "We begin with the Crucible Run," he announced. 8 kilometers. Varied terrain. Weighted kit. "This is assessment only. I want to see where you are, not where you want to be." The Crucible Run was designed to humble recruits. Kale had built it himself, cycling the terrain protocols through mud flats, elevated crossings, false summits, and a final kilometer of deep sand that stole the strength from legs that thought they were almost done. Most trainees, even experienced ones, finished it looking broken. The Valephari recruits moved efficiently. Their long legs ate distance. They finished in reasonable time, breathing hard but controlled. Mara Ellison finished 4 minutes behind the pack. Kale marked it in his log without comment. She'd struggled on the elevated crossings, her reach was shorter, and the rungs were spaced for longer limbs. The sand had slowed her too. He expected this. Structural disadvantage. What he didn't expect was what she did next. Instead of resting with the others, she walked back to the elevated crossing, alone, in the post-run exhaustion window, and ran it 3 more times until she stopped missing the spacing. He watched from the observation platform and said nothing. Week 2, she started arriving before the others. Week 3, she asked him for the terrain rotation schedule. "Why?" he asked. "So I can pre-walk it," she said. "I can't change my reach, but I can memorize the distances." He didn't give her the schedule. That wasn't how training worked, adapting to the unknown was part of it. But he adjusted her personal assessment criteria that evening, quietly, because something had shifted in how he was thinking about her. She wasn't trying to keep up. She was trying to win. The combat sparring rotations came in week 4. This was where Kale expected her to struggle most. Veiltheri were not large by galactic standards, but they were larger than her, faster in short bursts, and their joint flexibility gave them grappling options humans couldn't counter with matching technique. He paired her with Dre, the best technical fighter in the cohort. What followed was not what he had planned. Mara lost the first exchange in 11 seconds. She hit the mat hard, rolled, and was back on her feet before Dre had fully reset. She lost the second in 22 seconds, but she'd taken Dre off balance twice. She lost the third in 40 seconds, and during it she took a hit that would have made most trainees step out. Her lip split. Blood touched her teeth. She grinned. Kale felt something he hadn't felt watching a trainee in a long time, genuine uncertainty about what was going to happen next. The fourth exchange lasted 3 minutes and ended in a draw when he called time. Dre looked shaken. Not physically, technically, she had dominated most of the round. But there was something deeply unsettling about an opponent who absorbed damage and seemed to treat it as fuel. "How are you not more affected by pain signals?" Dre asked afterward, genuinely confused. Mara wiped the blood from her lip. "I am," she said. "I just don't stop." By month 3, the cohort had reorganized itself without being told to. When Kale ran team drills, the recruits were supposed to select their own formations. He noticed that Mara had moved from the back of the group, where she'd started, quietly absorbing, to the edge, then the front flank. Not because she demanded it. Because the others had started looking to her in the moments before Kale gave orders. She'd earned it through something the Veiltheri didn't have a word for. Kale looked it up one evening, cross-referencing human behavioral studies. Stubbornness was close, but insufficient. Resilience was accurate but too passive. The closest the xenopsychology database came was a phrase, refusal to accept a permanent ceiling. He sat with that for a while. Month 4 brought the scenario exercises, live simulations with consequence mechanics. Trainees wore sensors. Hits registered as incapacitation signals. The goal was mission completion under degraded conditions. In the third scenario, Mara took 2 critical hits in the first minute. Both registered as limb loss, her right arm and left leg, functionally removed from her use by the simulation. Kale watched the monitors, already tabulating the expected result, withdrawal, or at best a passive support role. Mara adapted her grip, changed her stance, and completed the objective. It took her twice as long. She improvised 4 separate workarounds. She dragged herself across 12 meters of ground on her one functional arm and one functional leg in the final stretch, reached the extraction point, and triggered the completion signal. The cohort was silent. Then Dre started a rhythmic percussion against her own chest plate, a Veiltheri gesture Kale recognized as reserved for warriors after exceptional acts. The others joined. At the end of month 5, Kale sat down with her for a formal progress review. He had the numbers in front of him. Technically, she ranked 4th in the cohort, 3rd in field adaptability, 1st in mission completion rate, last in raw physical benchmarks. He set the numbers aside. "When you volunteered for this program," he said, "what did you think it was?" She considered the question. Training for real scenarios. Most species view it as a challenge. A personal achievement. A credential. "That's not wrong," she said. "But credentials don't mean much if you can't apply them." Kale looked at her. In 5 months, she had not asked for accommodation. She had not complained about the equipment spacing, the kit weight, the atmospheric calibration that was optimized for Veiltheri physiology and marginally uncomfortable for human lungs. She had simply continued. "You understood from the beginning that this was preparation for actual conflict," he said. "Didn't everyone?" He didn't answer that, because the honest answer was, no. For most recruits, training was the achievement. The performance. The thing they pointed to. For Mara Ellison, training had always been the minimum. On the final day of the program, Kale made an addition to her official evaluation, something he had never written for any trainee in 22 years of instruction. This trainee does not treat limitation as a conclusion. She treats it as current information to be solved. Recommend for advanced track. Recommend for command consideration. Note to any future instructor, she will not be managed. She will only be directed. Direct her well. Mara Ellison picked up her discharge packet, shook Kale's hand, human custom, which he had learned to meet without hesitation, and walked back toward the shuttle bay. She passed the Crucible Run entrance on the way. She didn't look at it the way someone looks at something they survived. She looked at it the way someone looks at something they finished with. There was a difference. Kale Veyron had spent his career understanding that difference. He understood it now better than he ever had before. The galaxy had met stubborn species before. Proud species. Fierce ones. It had not yet decided what to do with a species that treated every obstacle as simply the next thing to figure out, and never, in the entire history of their observed behavior, seemed to reach the point of giving up. Kale suspected the galaxy would be figuring that out for a long time. So would he.